Welcome to the Delicious Dignity Podcast. Let's settle in securely and ever so nicely into the brilliance of our own dignity. Hello, lovelies. So this is the second episode and the final episode of the whole moving away from hustle culture and getting into my feel-good era beginning 2025, which is this year. In the previous episode, I went through my life story from 17 years old and I caught you up to the beginning of 2025. And this episode is about 2025 and the last 5 months that I have spent living from feeling good as my primary success metric. If there was a success metric, that's the success metric. So what has that looked like in the last 5 months for me? And like I said before in the previous episode, I was already living this way in other areas of my life. I was living this way in my corporate job. I was living this way with my friendships and my other relationships. I was living this way from my creativity and all these other areas. But now in 2025, the final nail of the coffin is me really living this way in how I take care of myself and how I conduct my business. Those were the last two areas where I really needed to learn how to choose feeling good over hustling, striving, achieving, pushing, working hard as the primary success metrics. And so that is what I did in 2025. I focused this feeling good on my work, on my business, specifically as my work, and in how I take care of myself. And so here have been the results of those experiments for the last 5 months. And I want to just be really honest with you about what it has taken me to live this way, about the struggles and the joys of living this way, especially in my business and in the way I look after myself. So without further ado, I want to start with the first and most important question I think everyone asks when it comes to money and not hustling. How do you make money if you're not hustling? How do you make money if you're just choosing to feel good all the time? Well, I already told you I chose the job I currently have from a place of feeling good. So that's already there and it's been there for the last 8 or 9 years. The money was coming in from there. In my business, I'm not noticing much of a change in the money. Like I said, it's only been 5 months. But what I have noticed about where it concerns my business and my corporate job and other streams of revenue that I have is that now I'm not forcing my business to make me a lot of money. Before, I was trying to get money through my business as a primary source of revenue, and now I'm not doing that anymore. I'm sort of being open that the money can come from wherever it wants to come, but my work in the world is my work in the world. It has got nothing to do with the money I earn. So in my mind, starting 2025, the moment I started working from a feel-good place, I've separated money from my work in the world. Those two things are no longer tied in my brain. And before this year, I don't know what it was. I always thought that it would be a waste of time if I was not making money from creating and producing. And when I looked back at my life, there have been plenty of things I've done over the years that haven't made me money. And I had a lot of fun doing them. And I was really happy doing them. And I wouldn't go back and change a thing. I've never regretted following my joy, even if it didn't make me money. And so now in 2025, my business and money are untied in my brain. There's no connection between those two. So that's the difference in money that I've noticed. I've also noticed personally that the way I spend money is more targeted now. My expenses are much lower, but the quality is higher. So if I do buy something, the quality is super high. I don't buy things that are cheap in quality anymore, at least in 2025. And I've not been spending any money on clothing or anything like that, but instead I've been putting my money into supplements and protein. And in fact, I'm actually giving away clothes. I'm donating a lot of my decor items. I'm just doing a lot of donating and a lot of giving away. And so that's the shift that I have noticed starting 2025 in finances. I wanted to share with you because I asked my intuition about what it thinks success is. And I haven't really talked about this on the podcast before, but the way I work with my intuition, I don't necessarily use tarot cards or oracle cards or any of that stuff. I literally just sit there and talk to my intuition like I'm talking to you right now and we're having a conversation, the back and forth. For me, God is a conversation. And I'll talk more about that in a separate episode. That's a huge thing to say, but so that's what my intuition is like. I speak to it back and forth. Sometimes it's an argument. If I'm being honest, it's not just a conversation. I was talking to my intuition and I asked it about what does my intuition think success is? And this is what my intuition said, verbatim. If even one person is happier, lovelier, and more alive because of something I said, did, or offered, that is success. To help one is to help the world. This is not an answer I was expecting from my intuition, by the way, but to say it is one thing, but when I'm talking to my intuition, I can actually feel the energy of that statement. And that was what helped me make the shift from not making my business be the biggest source of my revenue, or untying revenue and money from my business. Because the truth of the statement that my intuition said, that if even one person is enlightened or full of light, they're in light, then that's all that they cared about. And according to my intuition, I've been more than successful. It's, 10 years of clients and stuff, it has already achieved its success metric. And the feeling of that and the truth of that really hit me as it told me those words. And so that's what helped me unglue money and business in my mind. I did go further and ask my intuition, what is my advice to myself as I'm working on my business from 2025 and moving forward, and as I'm in my feel-good era? It said something really interesting. It said, love your own work. Be in love with the work coming through you. Admire it, be in it, be in awe of it, and celebrate the small wins. And when it said that, again, the words are one thing, the energy is another. The energy of what it was saying is that I spent so much of my business trying to make it work rather than enjoying making and being in business. I had made it work. I had made it something to effort, to strive, and to struggle. So I almost forgot to enjoy what I have built. I forgot to enjoy the incredible things that I have done. They just somehow became tasks on a to-do list that I ticked off. It's almost as if I took my business for granted and I took my talents for granted. And so one of the things, based on this conversation, I changed the way I do things in 2025 is that I actually do sessions for myself and with myself as if I was my own client. And it has made me fall in love with my own work. And it's just been beautiful. And so this is the big shift I noticed in my business for 2025, just holding feeling good as my metric, if you will. The other thing that has changed is that if you remember in my story, I was talking about how when I first started with my business, or when I was gearing up to start my business, I was taking a lot of courses, trying to get a lot of qualifications, trying to get a lot of badges of honor, so to speak. And in 2025, I noticed that I do actually love taking courses. I do actually love learning, but the learning this year has taken a different turn because I'm focusing on feeling good. The qualifications and all of that don't matter to me. In fact, I'm taking classes just for fun or just for helping me stay in a happy, well place. So for example, I've been taking belly dance classes, fan dancing, painting classes, and in general, I'm just making more art, whether the art is with my body or whether it's with my actual art like painting. There's just a lot more space to make art because I'm not crowding my day with tasking. I'm not doing things, I'm doing feeling good, And so there's just more art. And so that's the big difference because the quality of my learning has shifted to enjoyment and artistic endeavors much more than it ever did before. And also in that, my life has taken on the tone of my life being my art. And one of the things I've found that's actually really important to me is spending more time with my dog in the form of quality time, not just cuddling on the couch or anything like that, but actually playing with them, engaging with them, chasing them, running, and that kind of interaction really contributes to my life being my work of art. So that's my second and third big change, which is the quality of my learning is different now. And my life has taken a more artistic turn. Okay. The one place where it did get tricky, and it got tricky because with every new thing that you adopt, it's a new skill. So you kind of have to figure out where you stand in relation to this skill. It got a little tricky because I got really down in the dumps because the editing of my podcast episodes, it didn't go right. The editing was way off and I was working too hard to edit the episodes. Even though I was working with an editor, it just felt like a drudgery to do this podcast. So it stopped feeling good to record the podcast. And for a few weeks, I thought it didn't feel good to record the podcast. And so maybe the podcast is not something I should do because it no longer feels good to do it. And I had to really sit with this. And thank God I did, because I realized when I sat with it is that the podcast actually feels great. It's the fact that every time I sat down to record the podcast, instead of thinking about the content that I was talking about, I was thinking about, as I was talking, I was thinking about what it will take to edit what I'm saying, or edit a mouth noise, or edit a breath that I took. And that was what was really weighing heavily on me. And that's what didn't feel good. It wasn't the podcast. It was the way I was recording it didn't feel good. And once I realized that, I started to record the podcast episodes again because I realized that I only have to think of myself in the moment as I'm recording the podcast, and the editing can come later. That was a little tricky moment. It's like, oh, I stopped feeling good. Does that mean I abandoned the whole project, or does it mean I changed something? So I did have to do a little bit of a reevaluation there. It wasn't as simple as saying, oh, I don't feel good anymore, so drop it. And I just wanted to give you an example of what that looks like, because it's more nuanced than just saying, oh, doesn't feel good, drop it. Feels good, take it up. It's more nuanced than that. Okay. The next thing I noticed is that I am much more slower than I used to be. Everything has just slowed down. And that is very irritating to my ego and my mind, because my mind is very fast. My mind and my mouth moves at lightning speed. I've just automatically started slowing down. And so it's a little bit like I'm at war with myself, but not really, because I know that it's just conditioning that makes me want to move fast. And I've really slowed down. And what that has looked like in my business is that it took me months just to name this podcast. No name felt good. I listened to all the gurus talking about what would be a successful podcast name. And then some of them said that I should just start and not worry about the name, that I could change the name. And there were just so many pieces of advice that didn't feel good. And it didn't feel good to not have the perfect name, because I needed a guiding star for my episodes. It didn't feel good to just name it anything that the guru suggested that I should, based on niches and market and audience. I just couldn't find the right name, and it was bothering me until I just slowed down and just let myself say that I'm going to take years to name this podcast if that's what it takes, but I'm not going to do anything that doesn't make me feel good, that doesn't make me light up inside. And I think taking all that space, when I finally landed on delicious dignity, it was like a ta-da moment. It was like angels singing. It was that big aha moment. It felt like that, and I knew that it was right. Now, some of you might not like the name. Some of you might think it's not a great name. Whatever you might think, that's not the point, right? If it was for me, this was the energy I was looking for, was delicious dignity. And I think there's something to that. I think there's something to the fact as to why we get our best ideas in the shower. You know, you have the story of Newton and his apple falling on his head and suddenly understanding gravity, or eureka moments in the bathtub with Archimedes when he was trying to measure volume. And it's that idea that when we give ourselves space, when we just have space, somehow we can tune in to the truth of what it is we're looking to find. And that's what I've noticed in 2025, that I've slowed down, there's more space. And so the answer just drops instead of me trying so hard to find and search and discover. It's almost as if it just arrives. And so that's something I've noticed. The next thing I've noticed is that in my personal life, I have felt a little bit embarrassed in the way I make myself feel good. It's felt embarrassing because I've been so used to denying myself things and not treating myself well, that now when I'm treating myself really, really, really well, I feel embarrassed, even though nobody's looking. So one of the examples is that I am not a fan of driving. I don't like long drives. And I had to drive into the city the other day, so from Sedona to Scottsdale. And it was about 2.5 hours each way, back and forth in the same day. And I decided that, yes, first of all, going to that event, going to that thing that I needed to go to in Scottsdale felt really good to do. And it was related to my corporate job. And I purposely went to that event because it felt good to go to that event. I signed up for it because it felt good. That was great. But then when I thought about getting to the event and the driving it would involve, I did not like that piece. So when it came time to drive, I thought to myself, how do I make this feel good? Instead of just forcing myself to drive, as I always do, how would I make it feel good? So 2.5 hours for some people is nothing. For me, it's a long drive, okay? That's just me. I decided the day before, I'm going to make myself a little snack plate. I'm going to make myself a nice hot cup of tea. I'm going to put a blanket on myself. I'm going to sleep for more hours than I usually do the night before. I'm going to put fresh flowers in the little car vase, whatever you want to call it. In the car, I have this small little car vase, and I put fresh flowers in it. I took a bottle of rose oil, this really potent rose oil, and rose is one of my favorite scents. And I kept dabbing it on my wrists throughout the car journey. And like I said, I had a blanket over my legs. Everything felt so comfy, so cozy. And I was embarrassed because I have never taken care of myself that well. And it was so foreign to me. I almost kept looking over my shoulder, wondering if anybody was watching me. And of course, nobody was watching me. How could anybody watch me? But it's like I embarrassed myself and I thought I was babying myself. And I realized that actually I wasn't. I was just treating myself well. I'm not someone that likes to drive. So I'm going to treat myself really well in order to drive. And it was one of the best drives I've ever had in my life. I didn't even know where the time went. It's like I started, and by the time I realized I was already there. Oh, I was also playing soft jazz music in the background, like a coffee shop jazz, cozy vibe in the background. And that made it even better. And it was just, to this day, one of the best drives I've ever done. So from now on, I know what my recipe is to make myself feel good in the car. And all that it took was for me to just treat myself well. It was embarrassing, and I'm even embarrassed to say it on this podcast, but it's new for me, right? But it had long-term results because I wasn't as tired going to the event after a 2.5 hour drive. I was also not as tired coming out of the event and coming back home after a 2.5 hour drive. I was still full of energy. I remember coming back home and just opening up my laptop and working because I had treated myself well. So I was more competent and capable and I had more energy. It might sound so simple to other people, but that was a huge aha moment for me. The other thing that I have noticed is that I'm a lot more in my body. I pay attention to it a lot more, and I don't fight my body signals just to fit in. And one of those examples is the car, right? I made myself really comfortable so that I could have a nice drive. But I remember before this year, and I mean, I got better over time, but I've mostly fought off body signals or tried to ignore body signals. I don't know if I said this in a previous episode, but remember when I said I walked into the establishment that I was working at the end of 2024, and within seconds I got nauseous. And I'm not the type of person to get nauseous, but I ignored it. I pushed it aside. I thought it was something I had eaten. And I've never gotten nauseous in my life, but I ignored it. I pushed it aside. Now I don't do that. I sleep when I need to sleep. I eat when I need to eat. I don't force myself to fit a mold or a structure if my body doesn't want to fit it. So if I want to eat dinner at 3 p.m., I eat dinner at 3 p.m. Sometimes I would get hungry at 2 p.m., but I would sort of wait until 5 or 6 or 7 p.m. to eat because I wanted my body to fit a mold. And it was just more convenient for me to eat at 7 p.m. than it was at 2 p.m., just because I had so many things going on in the day. And now I just eat when I need to eat. I sleep when I need to sleep. I've been going to the gym a lot more often, and I've been going consistently, and I've been really enjoying lifting weights, which is something younger version of me would have never thought I would ever say out loud. Who is this woman? But I really enjoy going to the gym. I think partly it's also because I've got great gym instructors, but that's something that's changed this year. And so, yeah, there are things that I thought wouldn't feel good in the past and didn't feel good in the past that are now feeling good to me now, just even in the last few years. And so that's been an interesting thing that I have noticed in my just being more present in my body. One of the things I'm not a fan of is that I feel more tender and more sensitive to, let's say, energies and frequencies because I'm always looking at what feels good. So when things don't feel good, I feel like now I'm more sensitive than I used to be. And I'm noticing other people's lack of feeling good more often. So it feels jarring. And that's not been the most fun side effect of this experiment. But again, I think it's only been the first 5 months that I've really focused on doing that in my own, taking care of myself and in my business. And so I anticipate I will find ways to deal with this as I go through in the future. But I'm also finding simultaneously that I'm much more appreciative of other people. I say thank you more often. I want to share what I have more often because I just feel like I have a lot more to give because I'm not burdening myself with all these to-do things that I had before. And I just feel like I strike up more conversations with strangers than I ever did before. That's been something interesting. I'm feeling more tender and sensitive, yet I'm also reaching out to people more, including strangers. I've noticed how there's no societal support for the lack of hustle. And that is something that I have had to work at because there's no societal support for it, which means I have to find the communities and people that understand why I cannot hustle anymore, why I cannot work hard anymore, and why that's not a value system for me, because this society encourages hustle. Society says that hustling is the moral thing to do, achieving, striving, pushing, struggling. It's the moral thing to do. Good, productive members of society, right? And it's not that I'm not productive. The opposite of hustling is not being lazy. The opposite of hustling is just having a lot more creativity and innovation, actually, than just tasking and to doing, And I remember when I was telling someone close to me about all these things that I was doing in my day in 2024 and even prior to that, they were very encouraging. They were like, yes, work hard, do your thing, go achieve it. And of course they were coming from a good place. But I've noticed nobody says that now that I'm not hustling. Nobody says, yes, take your space, take your time. Don't do anything today. Be lazy, fill your day with art. Nobody really encourages that. And I'm noticing the lack of societal support, which has not discouraged me, but it has made me more conscious about what communities I join and who I talk to about this new era I'm going into. An interesting side effect also of this feel-good era is that my intuition, there's more space for my intuition to come through. Now, obviously, I specialize in being an intuitive and I specialize in intuition and I've trained in intuition, etc. So obviously, I could always hear my intuition just fine. But what I noticed in the change in my intuition this year is that now, before this year, I could ignore my intuition and sort of get away with it. I would just ignore my intuition or argue with it and I would just sort of push it aside. So hearing was never the problem. It was always following it. But now, starting 2025, because I am so in my body, because there's so much time and space, because I've focused on feeling good, I literally cannot ignore my intuition without feeling sick. So now there are consequences for me ignoring my intuition, which before it didn't feel like the consequences were that dire, but now I literally cannot ignore my intuition, which is actually kind of nice. I laugh because it's fun. It's the most authentic and honest way of being. I always thought I was true to myself, but this year I feel like I've gone even deeper. There's always more truth and more truer ways of being myself. And I just feel like I'm keeping my instincts and my intuition fully turned on, and I'm not turning them off just to fit in or fit a mold or fit somebody else's definition of who I should be. And so feeling good has allowed me to just be more intuitive instead of less, which I feel like hustle culture almost thrives on people not having intuition and not listening to intuition and overriding intuition and overriding body signals. And here's a fun story. So here's an example of how nutty this has been. So where does the story start? Okay, so one day, I think it was a Tuesday or something like this, I kept hearing my intuition say, go to this particular coffee shop. And I kept telling my intuition, no, I don't like the coffee shop. I said no to that coffee shop because I found another coffee shop I really like, and that is my favorite coffee shop. And my intuition kept saying, no, you're going to go to the coffee shop. And I kept saying, absolutely not. And I fought it and I fought it and I fought it. And then I woke up the next day with my intuition saying, you're going to the coffee shop. The way it felt in me, it felt like I was being pulled into the shower to go shower. I was being pulled to go brush my teeth. I was being pulled to pack my bags. It's almost as if I didn't have a choice. And by the time I knew it, I was in the coffee shop I did not want to go to. And I end up sitting next to a woman I've never seen before. And she was sitting in my favorite spot in the coffee shop that I once used to go to that I didn't go to again. But she was sitting in that spot. So I sat next to her. And all of a sudden, she struck up a conversation with me because she saw my screen where I was typing the notes for my podcast. And she starts asking me about my podcast and all of these things. And we were talking. And then I tell her about the fact that I might have to leave Sedona because my current landlord might be selling my condo, the condo I live in. And, I might have to leave Sedona. And she just randomly goes, I got you, girl. And I'm like, excuse me? And she goes, I have a rental property that is coming available on the exact date that my lease with the current condo will be ending. I just want you to think about that for a second. I go to a coffee shop I didn't want to go to. I sat down next. She could have been sitting anywhere in the coffee shop. She was sitting in my seat that I love. She struck up a conversation with me. And then she told me she has a condo available that's a bigger condo than the one I have now in the same neighborhood that I like in Sedona. And it's coming available at the same time that my lease is ending. Do you know that painting of Michelangelo where, there's a man who's reaching out? He's making so much effort to reach out. And then there's another man who's just lying back and casually reaching out to the hand that's outstretched to him. And I've always looked at that painting. I've never actually read what the symbolism was intended to be. But when I saw the painting, I just saw that God does so much, God, universe, whatever you want to call it, spirit, does so much to reach out to us. And we are just casually trying to reach out to it, And that's what this situation felt like. And I even told her how I resisted coming to the coffee shop, because it just felt like, how much did the universe, God, spirit have to do in order to get me to that coffee shop? And I barely met it halfway, And so that's an example of just more space allowing for intuition and that leading to magical things happening that I didn't have to struggle or strive for. I didn't go around searching for properties on Zillow or Apartment Finder, trying to find whether that there's a place available. I did do that for a little bit, but that's not how things ended up happening. Now, will I move into that condo? Will I not move into that condo? Will I get a different condo? I don't know. You see, I'm not attaching to the outcome. I'm simply saying, how incredible is this situation? At least I have some kind of backup if I needed it. And that is beautiful. That's all about intuition and the space for intuition coming through. The other unpredictable thing that I could never have predicted in 2025 in my feel-good era is that far from making you let go of your obligations, prioritizing feeling good has actually made me do the opposite. It makes me do things that really honors who I am and therefore can honor other people more. I ended up leaving, so I was hosting 2 meetup groups in 2024, like I told you. One was a hiking group, one was a women's meetup group, women's community group. And I felt the need in 2025 to continue those groups out of obligation. I had already paid for some of it. There were a few months left in my membership. And I felt this obligation to continue this thing that I had started. And I said, no, it doesn't feel good anymore. It just doesn't feel good, even though I already paid for hosting these groups, even though I know that there are people looking forward to the new events. It just didn't feel good to continue. And so I ended up giving up hosting both those groups, and one of them I gave over to a friend. And oh my God, the freedom and the space that it provided me. I didn't even know how much time and energy this was taking up in me. And choosing to not continue this obligation actually made me put my efforts elsewhere, where I truly was needed. Like, for example, my friends, this podcast, a certain group of people that I was friends with, it even made me have more time for my parents when they were visiting Sedona. One of the funny outcomes of this obligation thing is I used to find cleaning my house to be such a chore. Cleaning is one of my least favorite activities. It would always be such a hard time for me to clean my home. And now in 2025, that I focused on feeling good and having more space, I've just been cleaning a lot more often. And my home has never been this clean. In my entire life, I have never kept this clean a home and this organized a home. So far from letting go of obligations and chores, it's actually been the opposite, because it's not that I love cleaning, it's that cleaning happens so naturally that when it starts to happen, I just let it happen, and it feels good to do it, and it feels good to end it when it needs to end. Sometimes I clean for 5 minutes, sometimes I clean for 45 minutes, however it wants to show up. And I've never kept a cleaner home. If you had told me at 36 something years old that I would be happy to clean, or at least be on top of my cleaning, I would have said that you must be smoking something, because there's no way someone like me who hates cleaning would ever get to this point. That has been a huge surprise for me in 2025. The other thing that has been a surprise is that I used to have a lot of rules and a lot of structures. So I mentioned before I would eat at a certain time. I also was putting a lot of things on my calendar because the only way I can do so many things is if every moment of my day was structured. Every moment of my day had a little calendar block. And I just stopped putting things on my calendar. I just do them when they feel good to do them. And somehow, miraculously, they all get done. And not only do they get done, I'm doing more of what is the essential stuff that I used to ignore doing before. And it's just been incredible. And the other example of a rule or structure I used to have is with friendships. A lot of my success metrics for friendships is having long-lasting friendships. At least in the past, that was my success metric. And I realized in this year that I don't really care about that. I care about, does it feel good to talk to this person? Whether it's 2 minutes or 2 lifetimes, I don't care. Does it feel good to talk to this person? So I don't have an expectation or a structure or a rule around friendships at all anymore. Of course, I require there to be respect and I require there to be sweetness. But other than that, I don't have expectations on when, how, and shoulds and ifs and buts and thens should happen in a friendship. And yeah, so those are some of my newfound things that have happened in 2025 with just prioritizing feeling good. And if you just listen to everything I told you about, doesn't it feel like I just sank even deeper into my dignity, into a delicious type of dignity? I think maybe that's where the podcast name came from. Life just feels delicious. So anyway, here we are for 2025 and beyond. The vow I made to myself is I welcome feeling good. And notice the words I'm using. I'm talking about welcoming feeling good, not pushing for it, not striving. Yes, it's a priority. Yes, it's a success metric, but it's not really. It's just fluid. It's just welcoming feeling good. It's not a new religion. It's just a guest I'm inviting to sit at my table. This is the part of the episode where I talk about maybe some rituals that you can do, specifically a journaling ritual, but I also have a movie recommendation as part of your ritual. So the first thing is I want you to choose your language. Maybe feeling good is not your language. I've heard people say the words alignment or as a different word for the same energy. Make up your own. It doesn't matter what you call it. Maybe you like the word tingly or skippy or peacefully skippy, or maybe you like the phrase gooey inside. Whatever it is you want to call it that. You don't have to call it feeling good. Use your own words. But here's the ritual, okay? And it's a journaling ritual. And once again, the journal prompts will be put in the ritual accompaniment for this episode. So if you prefer to read and do your journal work, that's fine. But you can also listen. So here are your prompts. The first question for your journaling is, where have I been hustling, struggling, pushing, striving, overachieving, achieving, working hard? Where have I been doing these behaviors? And just quickly make a list of where in your life do you most have those behaviors. The second prompt is, what's one area, or maybe 2 or 3, but mostly one area, where I can start welcoming feeling good? The third prompt is, what are my doubts, fears, and anxieties around welcoming feeling good in that area? What do I feel like will happen because I welcomed feeling good in that area? What do I feel like won't happen because I welcomed feeling good in that area? And what we're doing here is we're taking stock of all your secret fears and anxieties and all the different belief systems you have around welcoming feeling good in that area. And again, you don't have to pick one, but I do recommend picking one because it's easier to target one area. And the final prompt is, what's one action I can take this week based on the question of where can I welcome feeling good? So wherever you chose to feel good, whatever that area is, what is one action you can take this week? Based on all the questions we went through prior to this, maybe put together your answers from all those questions and just creatively think of one action step. And note that we're not forming habits or routines. We're simply doing what feels good to do in the area that you chose, using all of the different data points that you gathered in the previous 5 questions. Here's a quick example. Let's say you've been hustling in your job, and that's one area that you identified where you can welcome feeling good. Now, for some people who didn't understand the assignment, they will say, oh, well, I'm hustling in that area, so I'm going to quit my job. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we're welcoming feeling good. We're not forcing it. If that's an area where you want to welcome feeling good, maybe tomorrow when you wake up in the morning, and just for tomorrow, when you wake up in the morning, you make yourself a lovely breakfast, or maybe you set up the breakfast the day before and you eat that breakfast before you go to work in the morning, the next morning, whatever that might look to you. You know, I need a blanket every time I sit down to work, so I always have a blanket on me. It's something so small, but it's an intention, and it's an action based on intention of welcoming feeling good instead of forcing yourself to fit a certain mold. And then the third part of this ritual, I highly recommend watching Chocolat. It's a movie with Juliette Binoche. I'm so sorry if I butchered her name. She's one of my favorite actresses. And it also stars Judi Dench, I believe is her name. And this movie is a visual example, because sometimes we need visual examples of feeling good. And this movie is all about her chocolate and how it makes people feel good, and how these people resist feeling good, and all the different excuses and projections they throw upon her and her chocolate because it makes them feel good. So it just gives you a visual example of what it means to live from that place. And sort of maybe it'll spark some creativity in you too. But that's my movie recommendation as part of the ritual for welcoming feeling good. So my friends, if you have any questions, or you want to come along with me for this ride in your feel-good era, or you want to start your feel-good era, feel free to share it with me on Delicious Dignity over at Instagram. Let me know what you think of the movie too. I would love to see what you guys thought of the movie when you watch them. And if you have any topics you want me to cover in future episodes, don't forget to let me know that as well over at Delicious Dignity. Okay, my friends, until next time, may you welcome the dignity of feeling good. Bye, my friends. Much love to all of you.